listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Duraeus. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Duraeus, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review AEW Dynamite from April 26th, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the Dynamite review. A lot of things to cover. Of course, the main thing that we are going to be talking about is Roderick Strong officially being all elite and joining up with his former partner from the Undisputed Era in the NXT days, with Adam Cole helping him against the Jericho Appreciation Society. We had Orange Cassidy taking on Bandido for the International Championship. Dax Harwood from FTR, one half of the AEW Tag Team Champions, takes on JEFF, JARRETT, Jeff Jarrett in a very good old-school style match, though I'd argue the wrong man won. We had Wardlow in action. Of course, he's doing some stuff with Arn Anderson and teasing a potential feud with Luchasaurus for the TNT Championship. We had, of course, the finals, quote-unquote, of the Pillars Tournament with Darby Allin facing off against Sammy Guevara, in which it ended up basically in a fuck finish with Sammy Guevara getting the win, with Darby Allin getting disqualified. But it is not over with the four pillars, and we're definitely leading towards a four-way at Double or Nothing as well. We also had Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita taking on the Butcher and the Blade, but that was not the story. The story happened in the end, and we will talk a lot about what went down in that closing segment on AEW Dynamite. But before I get on with all this craziness, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Overall thoughts on Dynamite. I really enjoyed Dynamite this week. Much better than I did last week, I will say that. Dynamite has been pretty fun to watch, in my opinion, lately. There's been some weeks where it was kind of like a down, I don't want to say a down period, but just nothing really special happened on Dynamite throughout these past couple of weeks. But, of course, I could even make the argument that, this build for Double or Nothing has been so much better than AEW's build for Revolution. Now, I will say, I thought AEW's build for Revolution was fine, but I do understand that some people really wanted more when it came to the build for Revolution. Granted, right now we're damn near a whole month away from Double or Nothing, but literally AEW's planting the seeds for what they want to do with Double or Nothing, and I think they're doing it very, very, very well. But overall, I thought this was a pretty good show that we had this week. The opening match of the evening had Orange Cassidy defend his international championship against Bandido. Very good match to open up the show, and also it's a great thing that it's for the International Championship. Literally, I constantly come on this show every week and say the same thing because I know it's true. The International Championship is, in my opinion, now AEW's main mid-card championship. It's their main secondary championship because if you really think about it, the TNT Championship has been shafted completely. I don't give a shit if Wardlow has it. That TNT title means absolutely, and I mean this wholeheartedly, the TNT Championship means absolutely nothing. They should just damn near retire the whole thing, in my opinion. That's just my deal. But overall, this match was pretty good. Orange Cassidy is literally making that title prestigious. Bandido is fantastic, but I will say this. We really need, when it comes to Bandido, I believe he's signed to AEW. I mean, I know you're putting him in these big matches, but, you're putting him in situations where he has to lose. I think we need to start talking about Bandido winning matches. That's just my opinion. Bandido, yes, he's had some bangers, but let's be honest, man, he needs to start winning some matches. But nonetheless, Orange Cassidy taking on Bandido was a great match nonetheless. Cassidy goes for his own version of a cartwheel in response to Bandido. He tries to put his hands in his pockets, but then Bandido does not let him. We get a bunch of arm drag reversals, but then Cassidy puts Bandido's hands in his pockets, which was a hilarious thing throughout the whole match. Cassidy goes for the head scissors, and he tries to go for the suicide dive, but stops. Cassidy then puts his hands in his pockets. We get a bunch of freshly squeezed chants by the crowd. After that, Cassidy goes for the Hurricane Rana and a dropkick on his hands in his pockets. After that, Cassidy slaps his hands, but then Cassidy goes for an elbow suicide attempt. Cassidy then gets caught and gets driven to the top of the barricade by Bandido. At this point, both men are on the outside, but then Bandido takes Cassidy in the ring. We then go for a cover and a near fall. Bandido then spears Cassidy into the corner. Bandido then goes for the enziguri, but then he catches Cassidy and applies a submission stretch on Orange Cassidy. Cassidy then gets his hand onto the bottom rope. He then follows up with a dropkick, but then Bandido goes for a maneuver over the top rope on the outside, which looked fucking insane. Once we're back from commercial break, Bandido picks up Orange Cassidy, but then Cassidy goes down, and then he hits the stunner, countering Bandido, but then he goes for the tornado DDT attempt, but then Bandido hits the vertical suplex. After that, he goes for the overhand chop. Cassidy retaliates with an amazing chop of his own, a casual chop, I should say. Then Bandido goes back with the furious overhand chop, and then Cassidy once again goes for his amazing, and man, he has some amazing chops, man. We gotta love Orange Cassidy, right? We got a thrust kick by Bandido, but then he follows up with the pump kick, but then Cassidy drives Bandido headfirst repeatedly onto the corner turnbuckles. Cassidy then goes to the top, and then he goes for the dive and crossbody, but then Bandido picks him up, but then Cassidy escapes and hits the Michinoku driver. After that, Cassidy goes for the suicide dive, but then he takes Bandido in the ring. Cassidy then on the apron gets hit with the enziguri, but then Bandido takes Cassidy. At this point, Bandido is on the top, but then Bandido picks him up and hits the superplex. After that, we get the pump-up cutter by Bandido, and then we get a cover and a near fall, but then he runs into a boot by Orange Cassidy. After that, Cassidy goes for the back elbow, but then Bandido goes for the enziguri. But then Bandido off the second rope, Cassidy tries to fight back. Bandido gets taken down, but then he comes back with the right hand, that being Bandido. Cassidy then gets caught by Bandido, but then he picks him up. And when Bandido picked up Cassidy, he literally let go of one of his hands, and he literally had Cassidy up one-handed. Fucking insane. This athlete is absolutely insane, man. Bandido after that goes to the top and hits a beautiful frog splash after slamming him down one-handed. After that, we get a cover by Bandido and a near fall, but then Cassidy goes for the mousetrap pin, and we get a near fall. Bandido then counters with the roll-up of his own, and we get a near fall as well. Cassidy then manages out of nowhere to hit the orange punch, and then he goes for the beach break, and then we get a cover, and Orange Cassidy wins the match and retains the AEW International Championship. Overall thoughts on this match. Great match to open up Dynamite nonetheless. Again, I talked about this right before I even went through the match. The International Championship at this point is AEW's main mid-card championship. I don't want to hear anybody talk about the TNT Championship because that belt is nothing at this point. That belt is absolutely useless. Even if Wardlow has it, that belt means absolutely nothing. The International Championship is literally the most prestigious title when it comes to mid-card status in AEW at this point, and Orange Cassidy is a huge part of that. Now we really need to start thinking about, and I've been saying this for weeks now, but really we need to really start thinking about challengers to really take that belt away from Orange Cassidy, because the key purpose of the International Championship is of course defending it all over around the world. Could that mean defending it all over in different promotions? We have absolutely no idea. I believe Cassidy did defend his International Championship in New Japan. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe in New Japan Strong. I don't watch New Japan Strong, so correct me if I'm wrong. But nonetheless, I mean, Cassidy is doing everything right with that International Championship, and he's going to keep up the good work with that. But again, we really need to start thinking about who should beat Cassidy for that International Championship. It should be Takeshita, but that's just me. But nonetheless, great match overall. Bandido is great. I love Bandido, and I think he's been having bangers on AEW television throughout the many times he was actually there, because I believe he wasn't on television for a couple of weeks because he had visa issues. But still, I mean, I think we really need to start thinking about Bandido starting to win some matches, because it's great that they're putting him in these great banger matches. And it's not to say that he's buried, because he's really not. He's actually looking strong. It's just Bandido really needs to start winning matches. That's just my opinion. Adam Cole, in a backstage interview, he says, here's the deal. He will call out Chris Jericho tonight, and if he decides he isn't a coward, he will show him the mistake that he made, and if he doesn't come, he will find him. And then what happens is Bandido and Cassidy come in, of course, after the match. Cassidy and Bandido, basically, Cassidy picks up Bandido and basically puts glasses on Bandido over his mask, which was hilarious. After Adam Cole leaves, Cassidy and Bandido come in, but then Renee Paquette says that they're trying to get to the bottom of the situation with Chris Jericho and Adam Cole about what happened last week. And Cassidy replies, "Oh," and then he leaves with Bandido. Funny shit right there. After that, we get a backstage interview with Darby Allin and Jungle Boy. Darby says verbally they said a couple of things that went too far last week, but he's here to ask to kill any ill will between them, and says that the match ended last week, how the match ended last week, it ended like crap, and he was up on the Raptors, and he wishes he could have done something. And he asks if he can have his back. But then Jungle Boy replies he wishes it could have been him out there. Good luck. And then Darby replies it would have been nice because he would have beaten him again. Tension is showing with Jungle Boy and Darby Allin. You'll love to see it. After that, we got Dax Harwood versus Jeff Jarrett. Overall thoughts on this match. This was a great match nonetheless. I was actually very excited when they actually first announced this match because people need to realize, man, you may not like Jeff Jarrett, but Jesus Christ, man, Jeff Jarrett is the definition of a heat magnet. Not only that, he's not only a good heel, but Jesus Christ, man, Jeff Jarrett is like literally in the best shape of his whole career. At his age, I believe, how old is he? 55? Jeff Jarrett is fucking awesome, okay? I know Jeff Jarrett gets a lot of shit, and trust me, rightfully so. Like, he's put in the tag team title scene. I have absolutely no idea why. I think it's really dumb. I think the stuff he's doing with Jay Lethal, I feel like it kind of ran its course, in my opinion. Even though they're fine, I just don't like the fact that they're put in the tag team title contention, in my opinion. I think it's really stupid. But really, Jeff Jarrett is more valuable behind the scenes than he is in the ring creatively, like in the product itself. That's just my opinion. That doesn't mean I hate Jeff Jarrett, because I'm a big fan of Jeff Jarrett. I've always been a fan of Jeff Jarrett. Like, I'm not going to lie, man. His NWA title runs in TNA. You may not like them. It's kind of guilty pleasure for me. I don't know why. But Dax Harwood versus Jeff Jarrett, very old school match, old school styles, of course. Jeff Jarrett was basically taunting Dax Harwood throughout the entirety of the match. Great match overall, but I will say the wrong man lost. Not only that, the fact that you had Jeff Jarrett pin Dax Harwood, granted with the help of Sanjay Dutt and all the rest of the heels in Jeff Jarrett's scenario right there. Still, Dax Harwood is one half of your AEW World Tag Team Champions, and you have him lose to Jeff Jarrett in a one-on-one match. That's fucking stupid, in my opinion. Both lock up once again. We get a side headlock takeover by Dax Harwood, but then we get a side headlock by Jeff Jarrett. Then we get a standing switch by Jeff, but then he drops down Dax. Dax goes for the shoulder tackle, but then Jeff goes for the arm drag. We get a hip toss by Jarrett, and then he slams Dax. Jeff struts in the ring, and then we get a chop by Dax, but then we get repeated chops by Dax Harwood. He then takes Jarrett to the head first to the top turnbuckle, and then he sends Jeff into the corner. But then he runs into a back elbow by Jeff, but then we get an uppercut by Jeff Jarrett. And then we get repeated kicks by Jeff Jarrett, but then we get a chop by Dax, followed by a suplex. After that, he follows up with the leg drop, and then we get a cover by Dax Harwood and a near fall. Dax takes Jeff to the top, but then we get a couple of chops by Dax Harwood, and then he tries to suplex Jeff Jarrett, but then Jeff drops Dax down, but then Jeff is on the top. Once we're back from commercial break, both men exchange right hands, but then we get repeated rights by Dax Harwood. I don't know why, man. I'm literally tongue-tied. I always say this every week, but I always get tongue-tied with this shit. Jeff then grabs the knee and hits the knee breaker, and then Dax reverses the figure 4 attempt. Then he tries to apply the sharpshooter, but then Jeff misses the elbow. Dax then hits the diving headbutt off the top, but then we get a cover by Dax Harwood and a near fall. Dax then tries to pick up Jeff Jarrett, but then Jeff counters for the strike, but then we get a roll-up by Dax Harwood and a near fall. Then after, Dax hits the pile driver. And then we get a cover into near fall, but then Jeff goes to the outside, but then Jeff looks like he wants to retreat. And then Dax comes in and he hits a chop, but then Dax takes Jeff to the barricade. We then get a chop by Dax Harwood, but then he takes Jeff back into the ring, but then Dax goes back up to the top. And then he misses the shotgun dropkick attempt, and then Jeff actually catches him and he tries to apply the figure 4. But then Jeff slingshots Dax to the turnbuckle head first. And then we get a roll-up by Jeff and a near fall. But then he tries to go for the knee breaker once again, but then Dax counters it. but then Jeff tries to go for the figure 4 once again, but then Dax goes for the inside cradle and a near fall. We then get repeated right hands by Jeff Jarrett, but then Dax goes for the lariat. And then Jeff is on the apron, but then he picks up Jeff Jarrett, but then he doesn't come in. Jeff goes for the cover, but then Sanjay Dutt holds on to Dax Harwood, and we get a near fall. After that, Dax chases around Sanjay Dutt, which leads to Jeff hitting the stroke when Dax comes into the ring, and we get a cover, and Jeff Jarrett pins one half of FTR, the AEW World Tag Team Champions. I already stated my piece on this. I think, this match was great nonetheless. I like both Jeff Jarrett. I like Dax Harwood. But, man, the fact that they had Dax Harwood lose to Jeff Jarrett I thought was really fucking stupid. I mean, Jeff Jarrett is great and all, but, Dax Harwood is literally one half of your AEW Tag Team Champions. Are you really going to have him pinned like that? I don't know. It's just really dumb in my opinion. Not very good booking in my opinion. Tony Khan is backstage in a pre-taped vignette, and we knew that Tony Khan was going to have a major announcement. It wasn't advertised that we were going to have a major announcement from Tony Khan. It was just advertised as we will hear from Tony Khan, basically stating that he has an announcement without saying he has an announcement. But what does Tony Khan announce? What did Tony Khan announce? A lot of people were speculating maybe this could be the announcement of Collision. I honestly believe that the announcement of Collision will happen at the Warner Brothers Discovery Upfronts. I believe it's May 15th. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Tony Khan announces the return of the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament. This is a big, big, big deal. So, Tony Khan, now I'm reading this from F4W Online. Tony Khan has revealed the details about the upcoming Owen Hart Cup tournament. On Wednesday's episode of Dynamite, Khan announced that the opening ceremonies of the Owen Hart Cup tournament will begin at Double or Nothing on May 28th. The tournament itself will be held in Canada, and matches will be held at AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door event on June 25th. The tournament finals will take place in Calgary on July 15th, which is currently labeled as a House Rules show at the Saddle Dome. So that is great to see. Now, what's interesting is what I just read, the final sentence is, the tournament finals will take place in Calgary on July 15th, which is currently labeled as a House Rules show at the Saddle Dome. Now, I believe July 15th, let me actually look it up. I believe July 15th is a Saturday. Yes, it is a Saturday. And we all know AEW is going to have this new Saturday show airing on TNT, which is a 2-hour show from 8 to 10 weekly. And CM Punk is going to be the head of that. Now, could this be a scenario in which they change it into a Collision taping? We have absolutely no idea, but I definitely assume that's going to be the case. But what are my overall thoughts on the Owen Hart Foundation tournament being announced? This is a great thing overall. I thought last year's tournament was great, though I thought the finals, both finals at Double or Nothing, were kind of lackluster matches in my opinion. You know, Adam Cole and Britt Baker won, of course. That was not bad. But I felt like Adam Cole's match with Samoa Joe wasn't really that good. The same thing as Britt Baker and Ruby Soho's match wasn't really that good either. But hopefully, you know, since we're going to be getting I assume we're going to be getting some New Japan involvement, you know, that's going to be a great thing to see. But another thing I really want for this tournament to have, now, I'm not sure how this is going to be a decision-making process, because this is, of course, a partnership with AEW and the Owen Hart Foundation. But whoever wins this tournament should get a title shot at some point. You know, Adam Cole and Britt Baker ended up getting, you know, trophy belts, which is not a bad thing. It's a great thing overall, and it's a great honor. But again, you know, for me, you know, if you want to really make this tournament much more prestigious than it already is, I think it's easy for you to grant the winner of this whole tournament a title shot, maybe at a future pay-per-view. We're just going to have to wait and see. But overall, the announcement of the Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament has been announced. And unlike last year, because last year there were a series of matches that were happening on Dynamite, and the finals for both the men's and the women's tournament were going to be at Double or Nothing, in which they were. Now the tournament itself is actually going to be starting at Double or Nothing, and it's going to be ending on that July 15th house show in the Saddle Dome, which I believe is a 20,000-seat arena, which is insane to me. Only for a house show, I do not think that's going to be for a house show. I think they're going to rebrand it as a Collision taping. but that is just my opinion. But nonetheless, this is great for AEW. This is great for the Owen Hart Foundation. I'm definitely excited for the return of the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament. Continuing on with Dynamite, we got Wardlow versus a random jobber for I believe it was for the TNT Championship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it was. Maybe it was. I don't know. We get a headbutt by Wardlow, and then he hits the lariat, and then he tries to go for the Powerbomb Symphony, and then he tries to go for the third Powerbomb, and then he hits the fourth Powerbomb, and then we get a cover, and Wardlow wins the match. Arn Anderson gets the microphone, and he says, "Jesus Christ, young man, go get him an ice pack and give him a 12-pack. Everyone is asking this week, Beauty and the Beast, why Wardlow? He beat the hell out of a man in Powerhouse Hobbs, and he became the champion. And he's been in this business for 40 years, and all of you know he's been in this business for 40 years. He figured out who's in that dressing room. It's ironic that the NFL draft is tomorrow, and we all know we get a number one pick, and you take that team and you transform it into a dynasty. Wardlow is AEW's dynasty, and he can take this new off his shoulders, and he can take it to the next millennium. Sometimes he's going to have to bite someone's thumb off. Maybe he's going to have to pick up a chair and bash them over their head. But then what happens? Christian Cage's music plays, and he comes out with Luchasaurus, and he comes in the ring. Now, actually, no. Christian walks down the aisle with Luchasaurus, but then Christian actually walks up the steps looking like he's actually going to come into the ring, but then instead, Christian Cage ends up retreating, and it looks like we're getting a match teased between Wardlow and Luchasaurus for the TNT Championship. You know what? I'm down with that. At least there's some sort of feud with the TNT Championship, and I don't think it's going to be a feud that's going to die off. I think these guys are going to feud for the next couple of months, and it gives Luchasaurus something to do. I feel like I don't want to be that type of guy, granted, because Luchasaurus turned heel last summer. And after that feud with Jungle Boy, really, there was kind of no direction, because I believe Luchasaurus was off television for a while because he was dealing with the lawsuit because of his mask. But again, I felt like, in a way, after the whole Jungle Boy thing, he was kind of directionless. And hopefully this can give Luchasaurus that type of direction. And putting him in the TNT title scene is not really that bad. Now, that is to say, Is this going to be a scenario in which the TNT Championship is finally going to have that importance like it used to have when it was first introduced? I have absolutely no idea. I honestly do not think so. But who knows, man? It gives something for Wardlow to do, but it also gives something for Luchasaurus to do. And you know what? You got to applaud AEW for that at least. But again, I have no faith in the direction for the TNT Championship at this point. In my opinion, and I tweeted this out already, man. They should just retire that fucking championship. At this point, man, the International Championship is their main mid-card championship, period. Wardlow won it back last week. What the hell was the point of Hobbs winning it? You know what I'm saying? It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. We got Sammy Guevara and MJF in a backstage interview. He asked how he feels tonight, and then MJF comes in. He says that this is his moment, and he kisses his forehead. And then Sammy kisses MJF's forehead. Aw, the bromance. MJF says people says that he politics, that there was a Pillars tournament, and they don't care, and they laugh their ass off. Sammy says that he got a fat check, and that's all that matters. And tonight he will kick this face paint freak ass. And Sammy got him something. He got him a vest, and MJF is just so happy. And MJF got him a gift as well, and it's a scarf. Wow, it's a scarf. And they both hugged. And they're buddies. They're bros, man. They're bros. What are my thoughts on this backstage segment? In hindsight, this may seem like it's really stupid, and to an extent it is. But I'm not going to lie, man. I'm kind of intrigued by the chemistry with MJF and Sammy Guevara. You always knew that they had those chemistry back during the Inner Circle and MJF feud. I mean, when MJF, kind of in a way inserted himself into the Inner Circle by beating Chris Jericho, all that shit, they had that chemistry. They can flip back and forth, in bad terms, whether in good terms. But Sammy and MJF always had that really good chemistry, in my opinion. And honestly, I like what they're doing with Sammy Guevara and MJF, because you already know, MJF doesn't really give a shit. He's just faking the shit out of Sammy Guevara at this point, and it really showed later on in the show. But nonetheless, this was a great backstage segment. I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought it was quite entertaining, in my opinion. RJ City is backstage. I'm not really the biggest fan of his. I know he has fans, but I'm not really the biggest fan of his, with all due respect. He gets attacked by the Blackpool Combat Club, and Moxley says it's going to be a big night for the BCC, and they have some scars to leave here on Dynamite. What could that mean? What could that mean? We then get Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara in the finals of the Pillars Tournament, and whoever wins will face MJF in the main event of Double or Nothing, May 28th. Overall thoughts on this match. This was a very good match, and I know last week when they first announced the Pillars Tournament, a lot of people were not really too excited about this. I was one of those people that actually, in a way, supported the idea, because I totally understand where all these people are coming from. Like, we know we're getting the 4-way match of Double or Nothing. Why are you going out of your way to do this tournament that ultimately means absolutely nothing? I came with the conclusion that they're only doing this whole thing to really do something different in a way for the build for this pay-per-view. Because let's be honest, man, Double or Nothing is literally a month away. Like, literally a month away. Like, you can't just have constant, like, back and forth with all 4 pillars every fucking week. At some point, the audience is just going to get tired of that shit. And also, if you think about last week's opening segment, a lot of people really didn't like that opening segment, especially when it was only Darby, Jungle Boy, and Sammy. You know, I always said Darby Allin has improved on the microphone, Jungle Boy has improved on the microphone, but really at the bottom of the barrel, it's definitely Sammy Guevara. And honestly, what saved that segment was MJF. You know, MJF is not always going to be there to save their asses, you know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, I mean, you know, this Pillars Tournament, yes, hindsight, it kind of makes no sense, but they're trying to do something in order to build for the match, and I think that's what they're trying to do with this case. But overall thoughts on this match, I thought this was a very good match between Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara. Also, I really liked the finish of this match because it really kind of created a certain dynamic in which we know what will happen the next week. MJF comes out, and he is on commentary. MJF is eating pickles on commentary. And by the way, I believe he's actually selling his own pickles, so that's pretty funny. The match starts. Sammy goes for a slap, and then we get a side headlock takeover by Darby Allin, but then Sammy goes for the backflip. We then get a side headlock again by Darby, but then Sammy misses a chop, and then Darby goes for the headlock, but then we get a side headlock takeover by Sammy into a roll-up. Side headlock by Darby, but then we get a bunch of counters after counters by both men. Then Darby applies the Scorpion Deathlock, but then Sammy gets his hands onto the bottom rope. After that, Sammy spits into the face of Darby Allin, and then he manages to hit the knee strike after that. And then once on the outside, he sends Darby to the ring post, and then Sammy takes Darby into the ring. Darby then tries to pick him up, but then we get a right hand by Darby. At this point, Sammy is on the middle rope, but then Darby steps back into the ring. He then tries to hit a German suplex on Sammy off the apron, but then at this point, the referee is distracted. After that, Sammy goes for the low blow on Darby, taking him to the outside. And then Sammy hits a springboard moonsault on Darby on the outside. And we go to commercial break, and once we're back, Darby is busted open. Sammy's on the outside, but then Darby goes for the suicide dive, but then Sammy counters into the cutter. After that, Sammy takes out a table, but then Darby drives Sammy onto the barricade. And then he chops Sammy and then places him on the table. Darby comes in the ring and goes to the top. But what happens? Ty Mello comes in, and Sammy runs up and hits a beautiful Spanish fly off the top. We then get a cover by Sammy and a near fall. And then Sammy goes to the top, and then Darby is on the table. And then Sammy hits a fucking insane 630 senton on Darby through that table. After that, Sammy comes into the ring, but then Darby comes back into the ring. At this point, MJF on commentary while eating his amazing pickles gets pissed and comes to the ringside area. After that, Sammy dives into the corner, but then Darby goes for the shotgun dropkick on Sammy into the corner. And then Darby goes to the top, but then MJF throws Sammy the skateboard. And what happens is Sammy throws the skateboard to Darby Allin, lays down while the referee's distracted. Then the referee turns around, and he sees that Darby Allin actually has the skateboard, which leads to the referee to ring the bell and causes a disqualification. So Sammy pulled an Eddie Guerrero to get Darby Allin disqualified. And as of what it looks like right now, it will be MJF versus Sammy Guevara at Double or Nothing May 28th. in which we all know it's not going to happen. We all know they're going to be doing the 4-way. But what are my thoughts on this match overall, and what are my thoughts on the finish? I thought the finish was very well executed. Because usually when, wrestlers pull an Eddie Guerrero like that, it's usually the babyface doing that on the heel. In this scenario, it's actually the heel doing it to the babyface, and the babyface actually gets caught with the chair, which I absolutely like, because you rarely see that. I believe it happened sometimes, but not really a lot of times. It's mostly the babyface doing that to the heel, but in this case, the roles were reversed, which I actually really liked. But nonetheless, that was a very, I don't want to say creative finish because everybody does it, but again, I enjoyed the finish for what it was. So after Sammy gets disqualified, or I should say Darby gets disqualified, Tony Schiavone is talking to him, and he states this on commentary. And Jungle Boy comes out with the chair, and he offers help to Darby, but then Darby gets pissed off at Jungle Boy. MJF says, beat the living hell out of each other because, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the main event of Double or Nothing. So, Monkey Boy, you can grab a banana, and Darby, you can use your tears to play dears while he plays with himself and listens to My Chemical Romance. That was a funny-ass line, man. I remember in the early days of AEW when you were watching Being the Elite and MJF was actually on Being the Elite, MJF would constantly make those emo jokes, which was the funniest shit ever. And when he mentioned My Chemical Romance, that was hilarious. I love My Chemical Romance, by the way. They're a great band. He talks about they should both go back to the undercard because you suck. And just like all the fans suck in the arena, and just like all the fans watching on television suck. And Tony Schiavone interrupts, and he calls MJF a prick. And he talks about how he just talked to Tony Khan, and he says that Sammy did earn his title shot at Double or Nothing, but he may not be the only one. Tony Khan has told him that next week on Dynamite, there will be a tag team match. There will be a tag team match between Sammy Guevara and MJF and Darby Allin and Jungle Boy. And what happened is whoever wins, so for example, if Jungle Boy and Darby Allin win, both of them will be a part of the 4-way at Double or Nothing. But if Sammy and MJF wins, then they will be basically, as the match is advertised right now, and it will be Sammy versus MJF. So if Darby and Jungle Boy win, both will be inserted into the match, and it will be a 4-way. After that, the heels get pissed, and Jungle Boy offers a hand to Darby, and Darby Allin gets the hand, and the segment ends. So overall thoughts on this segment after the matches, this was very good. Look again. They're continuing to build this slowly. Keep in mind, they started to build this immediately after Revolution, like a week after Revolution. They started to build to this thing. So they're really going full-fledged with this in the long term until Double or Nothing. And again, you're not going to have promo segments every fucking week with these guys. You have to do something different, and this is exactly what they're doing. Yes, I totally understand that the whole Pillars tournament, in a way, makes no sense, since you, the viewer, knows that you're going to be getting the 4-way at Double or Nothing. But at the same time, when it comes to the build, you really have to do something different, and this is exactly what they were doing. So we're going to be getting the 4-way match, most likely. Of course, it depends if Darby Allin and Jungle Boy win their tag team match, in which most likely they will. But nonetheless, very good stuff overall. I definitely enjoyed this for what it was. At the end of the day, we all know we're going to be getting the Fatal 4-Way at Double or Nothing, and we all know that match is going to be a fan-fucking-tastic match. Probably, and this is my major prediction right here, and I know I may sound like I am exaggerating, but that's probably going to be a Match of the Year contender. That's just my opinion. Because, if you really watch those one-on-one matches, for example, MJF versus Darby Allin at Full Gear in 2021, that match was fire. Sammy Guevara versus MJF on that one episode of Dynamite in Daly's Place 2 years ago, even though that match, I believe, ended in a fuck finish with MJF winning, that match was still fucking fire. MJF versus Jungle Boy at Double or Nothing 2020. These guys are capable of having great matches with one another, and not only that, it's going to be absolutely insane to see all 4 of these guys literally interact at the same time in a 4-way. I'm just excited about that. But we're not done with MJF and Sammy Guevara. Once you come back, MJF and Sammy basically try to get interviewed by Renee Paquette, but MJF ignores her and MJF basically states that ever since he tried to win this belt, Tony Khan has been playing games with him. and wherever he goes, the Triple B follows. So MJF comes to his, I believe it's his SUV, and MJF says, he basically tells Sammy Guevara, what are you doing? Because, of course, Sammy Guevara is following with MJF, and they're bros. They're buddy. And what happens is MJF is like, what are you doing? And he says, the car is full. And the camera pans to the car. The car is empty. And what happens is MJF enters the car, and he leaves. What a rat bastard MJF is, bro. That was the funniest shit I've ever seen, man. What a rat bastard MJF is, bro. That was hilarious. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. They kind of took a page out of WWE's book by kind of adding a scenario in which like the heel kind of like turns their back on television. Like WWE does that all the time. So I like the fact that AEW kind of in a way did the same thing. But nonetheless, that was pretty entertaining. Oh, the car is full. No, it ain't. And the camera just shows that the car ain't full. Absolutely hilarious. I loved it. In our next segment, we got an Adam Cole segment, of course, coming off of last week, in which Chris Jericho basically gave a kendo stick to Saraya and the Outcasts, and they basically assaulted Britt Baker while Adam Cole was handcuffed. So Adam Cole is coming out, and he is pissed off. He says, Jericho, he knows he can hear him, you son of a bitch. It's one thing to run your mouth, but the face that had them handcuffed and made them watch as he constructed beating down Britt. That is unforgivable. He crossed the line, and he's going to hurt him and hurt him bad. And he basically calls him out to bring his ass to the ring, and he will smash his face. Get the hell out of here, Chris. He's losing patience. So at this point, Jericho no-shows. And when Jericho no-shows, Adam Cole then states that if you have it your way, I'll come find you. And then what happens? Immediately, Chris Jericho's music plays. But Chris Jericho's on the Titantron. Adam Cole says he wants him to come to the ring and fight him. And Jericho says, are you kidding him? He doesn't want to be near him. A man who allowed his women to get beaten, he did nothing to stop it. He is a coward. He doesn't want to be near him, but his guys will. And then what happens is the Jericho Appreciation Society come in, and they all gang up on Adam Cole, baby. And then what happens is Orange Cassidy and Bandido come out, but the numbers are still with the advantage of the heels. And what happens is a Killswitch Engage song shows up. It starts playing, and on the Tron, at first it stated SRS, and somebody was like, oh my god, what is that, Sean Ross Sapp? That was the funniest shit ever. But Killswitch Engage plays, and who is it? Mr. Roddy himself, Roderick Strong, comes in and comes to the aid of Adam Cole, of course, from the Jericho Appreciation Society. Adam Cole and Roderick Strong see each other. Then what happens? Both men hug it out to a huge pop, and then Orange Cassidy and Bandido look at Adam Cole and Roderick Strong, especially with the look on Orange Cassidy's face, because Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy had some beef with one another, if you guys do not recall. Early last year, they were feuding, so very interesting stuff. You had then Orange Cassidy and Bandido retreat to the outside. Meanwhile, you have Adam Cole and Roderick Strong reunite and basically kind of like mend their fences after everything that happened in NXT. Because if you guys do not recall, AEW, especially when it comes to the Undisputed Era and shit, if you guys do not recall, when they brought in Kyle O'Reilly during that Adam Cole match that he had with Orange Cassidy in late 2021, you had Kyle O'Reilly come in, and when he first looked at Adam Cole, both men were just like arguing with one another, basically continuing their storyline that they had in NXT, which was actually great to see as well, because if you guys do not recall, in early to mid 2021, Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly were feuding in NXT. So it was great to see that that play out, but it was great to see Roddy and Adam Cole show up on AEW Dynamite. Now, with Roderick Strong being a part of AEW, what does this mean for the future regarding maybe the Undisputed Elite? A lot of people were saying, hey, what if this could be the reformation of the Undisputed Era in AEW? Because we did kind of have that technically with the Undisputed Elite last year, in which they had them attack the Elite. But again, you know, there was no direction. And of course, all the situations with the Elite happened with Brawl Out, all that stuff. So it kind of hindered that. Because I remember when they first brought in Adam Cole and then Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish came in, I would immediately think that, you know, once Kenny Omega comes back, the first major feud that Kenny Omega should be in is in a feud against Adam Cole. But now we're looking at a year later, and Adam Cole is now a full-fledged babyface. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. But right now, Adam Cole, of course, is focused on Chris Jericho and the Jericho Appreciation Society, and they're most likely going to be having a match at Double or Nothing. But the major question is, what is going to be happening after Double or Nothing? When is Kyle O'Reilly going to come back? Are they going to be reforming the Undisputed Elite or the Undisputed Era? I assume they're going to be calling them the Undisputed Elite. What is going to happen? Because then, of course, it all ties in with CM Punk. And as we all know, most likely the first major feud that CM Punk is going to be in when he comes back is going to be in a feud against Chris Jericho. So it's very interesting to see what happens as we head towards Double or Nothing. And as we head towards after Double or Nothing, a lot of interesting scenarios regarding all these different groups and all these different wrestlers. So great to see Roderick Strong being in AEW and finally reunited with Adam Cole. I believe it was a while. I believe Roderick Strong actually requested for his release a couple of months ago. I believe it was last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Roderick Strong looked very happy there, man. Roderick Strong felt like he was home. And that's great to see. We get a QTV video package, and he shows Will Hobbs basically just pissed off at QT, and he threatens him and says that there's a conspiracy, says Hobbs, and QT says that he will be champion again. Who cares? Jade Cargill versus Taya Valkyrie for the TBS Championship. And, of course, Taya Valkyrie and Jade Cargill basically have the same maneuver. Of course, Jade has the Jaded and Taya has the Valhalla. Basically, the whole stipulation of this match is Taya cannot use her finishing move via the asshole himself, Smart Mark Sterling. The match starts. Both lock up. Jade gets in the face of Taya Valkyrie, but then Taya fights back. Jade is in control, but then Taya gets sent into the corner, and then she hits a clothesline, and then we get repeated rights by Taya Valkyrie, and then Taya tries to hit her finisher, but then she could get disqualified. After that, Jade runs into a boot, but then Jade holds on to the ropes and tries to go over, but then gets hit with the kick. Taya is on the apron. After that, she's on the apron and by accident hits a split. After that, Jade then drops her down onto the floor. Once we're back from commercial break, Jade slams Taya Valkyrie to the mat. We then get a cover by Taya Valkyrie and a near fall, but then we get an elbow dropped miss by Jade Cargill. And then Jade misses the pump kick, but then we get a kick by Taya. And then Taya sits out with a Thunderbomb. After that, we get a cover by Taya Valkyrie and a near fall, but then Taya runs into a boot. And then Taya goes to the top, but then Jade hits a right hand, but then both women fight it out. After that, Jade comes back. She hits a superplex. Jade gets up, and then Jade hits a Canadian Destroyer. Yes, she hits a Canadian Destroyer. Holy fucking shit. Jade then goes for the Jaded, but then Taya Valkyrie escapes. Then Taya goes for the double stomp, and then we get a cover engineer fall, but then Taya tries to go for her finisher, the Valhalla. But then she picks up Jade, but then she doesn't hit the move. Jade ends up going for the roll-up, and Jade ends up winning the match and retaining her TBS championship. After the match, Taya Valkyrie attacks all the heels, and then she picks up Aubrey Edwards, and it looks like she's about to hit that finishing move, but what happens is the referee comes in. So it looks like this feud between Jade Cargill and Taya Valkyrie is not over. I don't know about you guys, but I talk about this constantly regarding Jade Cargill, but like, Jade has had that title since the first Dynamite of 2022. It is April, heading into May of 2023. Has any, and I mean this wholeheartedly, has any match with Jade Cargill intrigued you a lot? I can't remember a single Jade Cargill match. Now, there's some good matches there, but like, again, I can't remember any of the good matches that she had as the TBS champion. Like, honestly, where's the direction for Jade? Could this be a scenario in which Taya actually ends up beating Jade for the TBS championship? Maybe. But again, we need full-fledged direction with Jade Cargill, man. Who is going to dethrone Jade for that TBS championship? It's literally been damn near a year and a half at this point. You know, I'm not real, like, I don't watch AEW to watch Jade. I like Jade. I think she's great. But again, I mean, where's the direction for Jade? They need to find somebody that is on her level to dethrone her for that TBS championship, because once she gets dethroned for that TBS championship, she needs to go straight for the women's championship. But again, we're just going to have to wait and see, man, because I could care less about what they're doing with Jade at this point. Could it be a scenario in which Taya Valkyrie ends up winning the TBS Championship? Maybe. And you know what? I hope that happens, but I doubt it will. Britt Baker in the backstage segment. The Outcasts forget what they're capable of, and Jamie says that this is far from over. They declared war, and the only thing that they will end is they send them into the bloody morgue. We got our main event. We got the Best Bout Machine versus the Japanese Phenomenon. Or not versus. The Best Bout Machine teaming up with the Japanese Phenomenon. Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita taking on the Butcher and the Blade. Wow, man. They got Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita teaming up together. Holy shit, that's fucking awesome. Overall thoughts on this match. This was a relatively not so long match. I believe this match was like less than 15 minutes. But nonetheless, Bryan Danielson was on commentary, but this was a great match overall. Really, the whole story was not even during the match. It was after the match. But what happens is Blade goes after Takeshita. We get a chop by Blade into the corner, but then we get a chop by Takeshita. Blade then runs into a leg lariat, but then Kenny Omega tags in. We get a sledgehammer shot on Blade, but then Takeshita tags in, but then Omega tags back. He then picks up Blade, but then he hits the You Can't Escape moonsault. After that, Takeshita goes for the senton off the top, and then he goes for the cover and a near fall. Kenny tags back, and then we get a chop by Blade, but then Kenny goes for the Hurricane Rana. At this point, Blade is on the outside, but then Kenny tries to go for the somersault, but then Kip Sabian on the outside interferes. Butcher then takes out Kenny on the outside, but then Kip Sabian drops down Kenny without the referee looking. Once we're back from commercial break, Kenny is in control over Blade, but then Blade tags in Butcher. At this point, Takeshita tags in. Takeshita goes for the crossbody, but then we get a bunch of right hands by Butcher. At this point, Takeshita takes out Butcher, but then we get a running boot by Takeshita. And then Butcher picks up Takeshita, but then we get a bunch of back elbows by Butcher, but then Takeshita goes for the brainbuster. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. He tries to hit a knee, but then Blade comes in, but then Butcher goes for the backbreaker, but then Blade hits the stunner. And then Butcher goes for the lariat. And the funny thing about this was you heard slight chants of CM Punk throughout this whole match. Yeah, you heard CM Punk during this moment of the match, which was hilarious to see. Takeshita goes for the Hurricane Rana, but then we get a knee by Kenny. Then Takeshita hits the beautiful Blue Thunder Bomb. Sami Zayn is so proud right now. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a knee by Takeshita, and then Kenny goes for the Snapdragon Suplex. Kenny then goes for the somersault, but then Takeshita goes for the running knee. And then we get a cover, and the baby faces end up getting the win. After that, Bryan Danielson leaves commentary, and he talks about how he sees one pro wrestler in the ring who got pinned, and one amateur who looks like he is exhausted, like his best days are behind him, and he's only living in the legacy that he lived in Japan. Right next to him, he sees a prodigy. Someone, if he trained with the Blackpool Combat Club, he would be a leader. If he trained with the Elite, he would basically be Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler. And what happens is the Blackpool Combat Club, that being Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta, attack Kenny Omega and Takeshita from behind. At this point, Moxley is given the screwdriver, but what happens is the Young Bucks end up coming in. They both hit a double super kick on Claudio Castagnoli, and then they hit the super kick on Claudio. Mox then gets hit with a Snapdragon Suplex, and then they super kick Moxley in the ring. Bryan, on the outside though, while Takesha's on the outside, tells Takesha to come into the ring. Very interesting stuff right there that we actually saw. So what happens is Bryan Danielson tells Takesha to come into the ring. Takesha just does not know what's going on. Basically, the Young Bucks hold on to Jon Moxley, and Omega has the screwdriver. And what happens is Takeshita comes into the ring, and he begs Omega not to do it. But then what happens is Mox ends up hitting the Death Rider. After that, Takeshita is just shocked. He has a shocked look on his face. And then he raises the hand of Takeshita, and then Bryan says, think about what you're doing. You want to be with the Blackpool Combat Club. And what happens is Yuta low blows Takeshita, and he says he made his choice. And Moxley grabs the screwdriver and stabs the head of Takeshita, in which Takeshita ends up getting busted open, and the show ends with Takeshita getting beaten down and the Blackpool Combat Club standing tall. Overall thoughts on this match, man, or this segment. I tweeted this out after this. storytelling, bitch. It's all about storytelling. People say AEW does not have stories. Motherfucker, this is your story right over here. This was great stuff. Did they tease Takeshita possibly joining the Blackpool Combat Club? Maybe. Now, what is the whole premise of you joining the Blackpool Combat Club? It's not just a scenario in which you just join up and you're buddies with everybody. Remember how Wheeler Yuta got in to the Blackpool Combat Club? I believe he had like 2 or 3 matches with Jon Moxley, and he finally got acknowledged into the Blackpool Combat Club in that last match that he had with Moxley on that episode of Rampage. I remember that match very vividly. It was a bloodbath, as I stated it last year. It was an absolute bloodbath. Could this be a similar scenario with Takeshita? We have absolutely no idea. But what's interesting is that we have Don Callis as well being the catalyst to all of this, because we all know Don Callis, as Tony Schiavone would tell Bobby Heenan in 1997, is a fucking weasel. He's a fucking weasel. Who knows, man? Could this be a scenario in which Don Callis ends up turning on Kenny Omega and the entirety of the Elite, and Takeshita is joining Don Callis, because he has been in the ear of Konosuke Takeshita for a while at this point. We have absolutely no idea. But could this be the seed starting to get planted for Takeshita to join the Blackpool Combat Club? We have absolutely no idea, but this was great stuff nonetheless. Great, great, great stuff. And I believe we have a steel cage match announced. I believe it was announced tonight on Rampage. Let me actually pull it up. Let me pull this up right here. It's on my phone. Yeah, we got a steel cage match announced. It's going to be on the May 10th episode of Dynamite in Detroit. And it's going to be a steel cage match between Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. I don't know about you guys, but one of the best AEW feuds in their company's history was Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. Now, the best feud as a whole is definitely MJF versus CM Punk. But nonetheless, man, one of their best feuds is definitely Moxley versus Omega. And they're going to rekindle that feud in this steel cage match on May 10th in Detroit at the Little Caesars Arena. So overall, I'm very excited for that match. But again, this is going to be leading to something big. This is going to be leading to something bigger. You know, we're either going to be getting Anarchy in the Arena, which I assume we're most likely going to be getting at Double or Nothing, or we could be getting Blood and Guts after Anarchy in the Arena, or maybe just to throw that thought out there, what if we get Blood and Guts at Double or Nothing? I think it makes total sense, but who knows? We're definitely leading towards a big multi-man match, most likely Anarchy in the Arena, and then after Anarchy in the Arena, we're going to be getting Blood and Guts, but nonetheless, I'm absolutely very excited to see what they're going to be doing when it comes to this feud in the future. It's going to be great stuff to see. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from April 26, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show. I thought the show was very good overall, much better than last week. We had a lot of great matches on this show. Of course, we had Orange Cassidy versus Bandido. We had the continuation of the feud between the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite, the announcement of the return of the Owen Hart Cup tournament, and a bunch of other stuff happening on this show, Dax Harwood and Jeff Jarrett. Great stuff overall. There were some nitpicks there and there. For example, Dax Harwood losing. I thought that was really dumb in my opinion, but it is what it is. Of course, the Sammy and Darby match, in which, you know, we're going to be getting the tag team match next week. Really good stuff, and we had some storyline progression as we head towards Double or Nothing on May 28th. But yeah, that was my AEW Dynamite review from April 26, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Rick, Ricky DeRays from the WrestleHavoc Podcast, signing out. I'll see you guys later.